Cause we be on a tough love. Oh, we feeling so high. Don't be afraid of falling. Cause you know we gon' fly. Cause we be on a tough love. Oh, we feeling so high. Don't be afraid of falling. Cause you know we gon' fly.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Kensani and I bring you faith, education, wisdom and lifestyle content. I hope I have been giving you some lifestyle and wisdom content. Please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share. We've reached 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for the love and your support. I really appreciate it. Today's video, actually before we get to today's video, I wanted to let you know that every Thursday I have something called Short Clip Thursdays, and then in those short clips we put up the content that we've done previously with guests where they answer certain questions. Those videos are pretty long, so I thought that these short clips Thursday will sort of summarize some of the questions we're able to cover. For example, we've already uploaded a video on what pupillage is. There'll be a video on what urban planning is. There'll be a video on what being impactful is. There'll be a video on land rights versus economic rights. There's just so many things, and it's short clips. I think nothing longer than 6 minutes. So if you feel like you are too busy to get into the full interviews, this will be of assistance to you. Anyway, if that's not love, I don't know what love is. Anyway, let's get into today's video. I am sharing with you guys the books that I've read so far, and we try and answer the question of what is the meaning of life. The first book I'm gonna show you guys is Finding Me by Viola Davis. I've done a short review on Instagram, actually two, and I've described it as so feeling, so rich, so satisfying. I cried a lot, guys, while reading this book. I cried a lot. Just her sharing her life's experiences and how she was able to be victorious throughout that situation, and how she's still so humble after all her accomplishments. I think some of the highlights here about journeys is that, you know what, everybody has their own journey that they're writing, and also about success. Success will come to us at the right time, but also we must never look at success as this big thing, but we can also look at success as each and every stage of our lives where we are able to be victorious or to triumph over certain situations. Side note, the kids at Sunday school always laugh at me for how I pronounce certain words. So please, Liwena, if you feel the need, you can laugh and you can teach me also. Yeah, so I won't go deeply into this one because I do intend on doing it on in studio with Brian and them. Yeah, so a nice video for this one is coming on the lessons that I've learned from the book. The second book that I'm gonna share with you guys is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. I also intend on having this one on Reader's Corner and recording it in studio, but also I'll share it on Instagram as well, my short review on this book. I think when it comes to this book, you need to be at a space where you want to slow down. I have been hurrying my life. Actually, I'm confessing and I'm sharing with you my private stuff. Yeah, I felt like I was in a hurry for certain things, and I also felt restless and exhausted, and the Lord and God has been speaking to me about rest the entire year, actually since last year. So I did mention this in the video with Makungu, and I invited her to come and speak to us about the importance of resting, because I felt a heaviness about me taking care of myself and resting. And then earlier in the year, this is the word I got. The word that I got was to rest. And then for the second half of the year, when I was also just praying over, I had an emphasis of I need to schedule my rest. So this book teaches you to slow down. It teaches you to be content, to not allow your unfulfilled desires to curb your happiness. I know you have 100 list of dreams. I have one, but there are certain things like you want to have achieved your LLM by the time you're 30. You want to be a millionaire by the time you're 29. You want to have a beach house in Cape Town by the time you this and this and that, and you're just striving. And he speaks of the twin gods of accumulation and accomplishment. I'm going into this book. And he says that we are being pushed not only by social media and everything, but we are pushing ourselves to the extreme that we're losing our souls pursuing accomplishment and accumulation. So getting more stuff, and he teaches us of 4 practices in which you can excuse me, in which you can unhurry your life, and that includes slowing down. It includes solitude. It includes practicing your Sabbath. What's the 4th one? I forgot the 4th one, but I will have this on Reader's Corner as well. But I like the part of contentment, not permitting your unfulfilled desires to curb your happiness, that you can enjoy your life as it is without all of those things, because you have a Father, you have God who is present, who is here, who is allowing you to journey through life. You know, this guy speaks about enjoy the smallest things in life, enjoy nature. I have been so intentional about resting now. Like, I'm so intentional about resting. I even avoid talking to certain people when it's time to rest. Now when I go running or go for my walks, I don't listen to music. I want to take in everything that's happening around me. I'm trying a lot more to be intentional with my relationships, and a lot more on scheduling, like having a proper schedule that I follow, about spending time with God, about putting up things on YouTube, etc. Because I just had too many things going on, and at some point it's not sustainable. Anyway, I've said too much about this book, so let's move on to the next book. The 3rd book I've covered this year is How Beautiful We Were by Imbolo Mbue. I also said I'm going to cover this on Reader's Corner. Gosh, I have so much content lined up for Reader's Corner. This book is it's about an African country that is being exploited for its resources. The specific resource is oil, and then the environmental impacts on the community because of this, and the community wants a solution on that because they're not getting any profits, but also their children were dying because of that. So also, if you are interested on social justice or on a book about the environment and environmental impacts, I think this is a good book. I'm still reading it. I haven't finished it because I had so many books that keep on coming that I set this one back for. Okay, that I've covered this year and still covering is All About Love by Bell Hooks. A video on this is already up for the first 4 chapters about the lessons I've learned from it about love. I don't know who to recommend this for, but if you are feeling like you want to learn about what love means and what it looks like, then yeah, I think you can read this book. But I think more than anything, it's calling everyone to come into a point where we see love as the highest goal more than anything. Yeah. The 5th book I've covered this year is this fantasy book by Jeremy Forsyth. Jeremy gave me this book. I also have a review on Instagram for this one. If you are interested in fantasy, then this one's for you. I enjoy watching fantasy. Like, I enjoy Game of Thrones. I watch Stranger Things. Yo, Abazalani must not come for me. Like, hey guys, hey, hold up. And then yeah, this is also fantasy. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it, but it's a bit hard to get into fantasy books because you have to keep up with the many characters. And I'm very much a self-help, motivational, psychology kind of girl. Like, I love those kind of books. Last but not least, we have Viktor Frankl's book about man's search for meaning, and I'm gonna go a bit deep into this one because it's been giving me sleepless nights after some of the things I've learned from it. I'm not gonna wait for Reader's Corner. I'm not gonna wait to have this recorded via Reader's Corner. So let's get into this book. So this book is written by Viktor Frankl, and he records his experiences at a concentration camp in Auschwitz, and this is during the Holocaust. So I can only imagine the conditions in which they found themselves at the concentration camps. I only remember doing a bit about the Holocaust in HSS when we were still in high school. But if you understand the conditions in which they were in and the weather conditions, firstly, the weather conditions were harsh. It's super cold, and they were not given proper nutrition, no proper food, no proper sanitation, no proper nutrition, no proper covering. So this was terrible. Like, they were prone to certain breakouts of sicknesses that if you survive the concentration camp, it's God's hand over your life. So Viktor comes in and he writes about his experiences there, and he looks at the 3 different stages of his mind during that period, or the mind of the prisoners during this period. And then he ultimately answers the question of what the meaning of life is. We can discover meaning in life in 3 different ways. Number 1, by creating work or doing a deed. And then I'm gonna refer to a page 142 in the book, and I'm just gonna read about what he says about the importance of work, and how it's able to give you a form of meaning. I have added something else that I think adds to what gives us what the meaning of life is, and that's God. Ultimately, the creator, the source of life, is the one who can give us what the meaning of life is, or what the meaning of your specific life is. So let's go back to Viktor. Viktor says that as to the causation of the feeling of meaninglessness, one may say, in an oversimplifying vein, that people have enough to live by, but nothing to live for. They have the means, but no meaning. To be sure, some do not even have the means. In particular, I think of the mass of people who are today unemployed. 50 years ago, I published a study devoted to a specific type of depression I had diagnosed in cases of young patients suffering from what I called unemployment neurosis. And I could show that this neurosis really originated in a twofold erroneous identification, that being jobless was equated with being useless, and being useless was equated with having a meaningless life. Consequently, whenever I succeeded in persuading the patients to volunteer in youth organizations, adult education, public libraries, and the like, in other words, as soon as they could fill their abundant free time with some sort of unpaid but meaningful activity, their depression disappeared. Although their economic situation had not changed and their hunger was the same, the truth is that man does not live by welfare alone. Okay, so he says the first thing for you to discover meaning is by work or a deed. And I thought this to be very important, because he's right that we have wrongly linked the meaning to life with having a job. So he comes and says, you know what, it's wrong, but it is important for somebody to have something to do or some work to do. So he would recommend to his students to find some form of work, even if it doesn't pay but has meaning to them, such as volunteering to charities, or giving back, or tutoring over the weekend, or serving at church. Those kind of things, it gave them a reason to live. It gave them a reason to see that their lives have meaning. And he also mentioned something about men shall not live on welfare alone. And this is why it's so important to question any policy that is always striving to just give people welfare. Welfare will never make us feel like our lives are meaningful. It will never give us meaning. Welfare will never show us what our purpose in life is. It will never fill the void that we need to understand what it is that we are called to do here on earth. So, and we know this. We've seen what welfare has done, you know. So yeah, that's number one. And then number two, he says that by experiencing something or encountering someone. In this case, he's making reference to love. He says that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. And he is not just looking at relationships in the sense of romantic relationships. There are parents who find meaning in life because they live for their children. There's a part in the book where he says he had just after World War II, he had a patient who came in and she wanted to commit suicide, take herself and take her child who was handicapped, and the child was the one that stopped her. And his reflection was that the child saw meaning in life even though she didn't. So let me just refer you to that section. Okay, so that section in which the mom tried to commit suicide and also take her child with, he reflects by saying that by the same token, excuse me, however, it had become clear as well that a life of short duration like that, for example, of her dead boy, could be so rich in joy and love that it could contain more meaning than a life lasting 80 years but that is not rich in joy, love, and peace. Gosh, so good. Okay. Anyway, the last thing he says you can have to discover your meaning of life is the attitude we have towards suffering. I think we are a generation that avoids the fact that life comes at us. And life comes at us, and life may come for us. And I'm saying this a lot because I'm getting everyone is just on about happiness, you know, and I'm not saying it's wrong to be happy. I want to be happy all the time. But what I'm saying is life doesn't always offer you that. Doesn't always offer that. We lose people we love. We go through situations. We go through heartbreaks. We go through situations that are unplanned for. If something happens in this country that shakes the economy or that changes your situation beyond your control, you cannot force happiness. You have to deal with that specific thing. I hear things like a soft life, I'm an egg, and I'm like, I have nothing wrong. Like, I would like to be an egg. That is definitely, I'm like, God is leading me into a soft life, and that's exactly it. At the same time, excuse me, at the same time, I'm praying that God, at the right time, when I am in a situation that does not require an egg, I become the rock that I'm supposed to be, that I become the person that I need to be at that situation. So I have nothing against soft life. I have nothing against living your best life. I have nothing against that. But we must never forget the realities that life can throw at us, and that we must be able to withstand those circumstances when they come. So he says that we must look at our attitude towards suffering. And I'm going to read at pages 85 and 87 of his book. Concentration camp, so he was there for 3 years. Yo, guys, I can only imagine. Now, I think, guys, if I was there during World War II under those conditions, would have been gone a long time ago. Anyway, we're not on about that. So once the people had lost hope, when they would give them an encouraging word, they would come back and say that I have nothing to expect from life anymore. And then his response would be, it did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who were being questioned by life daily and hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and in right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the task which it constantly sets for each individual. He's not saying Problems are not gonna come. Problems will come, but you'll ultimately have the answer to those problems. We know. Let me go deep. Let me go into the Bible. We see the life of Paul, right? Paul speaks about how I have learned to live with everything. I have learned to be content. I've learned to be content. I've seen myself with everything, and I've seen myself with nothing. But I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It comes from that. He's saying I've learned to be content in every single situation. I've learned to be content. There's even that part where he refers to, I wanted God to remove this thorn from me. I wanted him to remove it. And each time God was saying, your grace, my grace is sufficient for you. That in our weakness, God is glorified. God is made strong in our weakness. So it's not like we're not going to encounter stuff. And the thing is, God gives us certain stops where we are in the highs of highs, and other times we are in the lows of lows. But thank God for us who believe him, who believe in his word, that we glory in him, whether we suffer or we are living our best lives, right? And we are so intentional about living our best lives. Yeah, so that's what he says. I'm still reading from Victor's book, guys. Yeah, the word is running, it's dripping. In having noted that life ultimately means you taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems, he comes in to say that when the impossibility of replacing a person is realized, it allows the responsibility which a man has for his existence and its continuance to appear in all its magnitude. A man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears toward a human being who affectionately waits for him, for example, or to an unfinished work, will never be able to throw away his life. He knows the why for his existence and will be able to bear almost anyhow. This is a guy who survived a concentration camp in Auschwitz, guys, during World War II. Like, sure, that's hectic. So ultimately, you are in a concentration camp, and I know somebody might come and say, Kenzani, it's easy for you to come and say these things to us because, well, your life looks easier than mine, you know. And then he says that we were all in the same situation, you know, and we all had a chance to respond to what life was throwing at us. And he's saying that it became clear that the sort of person the prisoner became was the result of an inner decision and not the result of camp influences alone. Fundamentally, therefore, any man can, even under such circumstances, decide what shall become of him, mentally and spiritually. He may retain his human dignity even in a concentration camp. This is where people were killing each other for food. He was noting at some point that when they moved him to a different camp at a time, people had resorted to eating human flesh because there wasn't any food. But he still reflects that in those moments, he says that there were people who still were genuine and caring. He's like, yes, that's the minority, but what we can try and do in a world that is in a bad state, and this I am concluding with, he says that it is true that decent people form a minority. More than that, they will always remain a minority. And yet I see therein the very challenge to join the minority. For the world is in a bad state, but everything will become still worse unless each of us does his best. So let us be alert in a twofold sense. Since Auschwitz, we know what man is capable of, and since Hiroshima, we know what is at stake. So we ultimately have a choice, you know. Yes, we are the minority. Yes, we live in South Africa, and corruption is rampant and violence is rampant or whatever, but we still have a choice to bring the light, to be the light, to live in the light, and to do what we can. And we can only do that through the grace of God. I don't see how we can actually do anything better or to better the state of the world unless if we are rooted and established in who God is. Anyway, guys, I don't expect this to turn into a sermon, and I was low-key a preacher in the past, you know. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.